Hey everybody, this is Carl back again for another YouTube tier list ranking. And today I will be doing a tier list ranking of all the solo X-Men stories that I've done so far. I will eventually get through the X-Men team up books. That'll be the next batch of comics I will be doing for the new year, because since Halloween, or at least the month of October, is approaching, and the holidays, those next 3 months is going to be kind of chock full of stuff that I gotta review and etc. So I'm gonna set aside the uh the X-Men stuff until the following new year, when the holidays are behind us. That way I can start really working on those reviews. But I wanted to do the solo stuff first, so that way it's kind of like how I envision Kevin Feige hopefully should do for the MCU with the X-Men, where you can just like focus on. That's one of the probably biggest detriments, despite whether the X-Men films from the Fox franchise were good or not. That's one of the detriments they had, where it's like they they keep trying to focus on maybe like one or two or three particular characters, where you got a whole plethora of a roster that gets forced into a back seat. That's not fair. And what they should have done is like they did with the Avengers films, where you can focus on a solo movie of each of, or at least a TV show or a solo film of each of these members of like the core, or like the big names of X-Men characters. So that way, once they come collectively as a team, then you already know all their motivations and where the headspace at, and etc. So that way, it's kind of like with the first Avengers film. It's like you already know how Tony will react in this situation. You already know how Cap will deal with this situation. The motivations behind Thor and Loki. Same thing with like Black Widow, etc. So that's how I feel that you should do with these, because each one of these has like a decent story, relatively in some aspects, but decent enough story where you can mine from for their own thing. So when they come together as a full X-Men team, it's full synergy, and you feel hyped for it. Anyway, so it's all in like apparently alphabetical order, so we'll just go down the list. So we got Archangel, and this comic, I didn't expect it to be all in black and white. From what I remember from my by the way, please like and subscribe, share this with your friends, follow me on links in the description below, including my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. And check out all my reviews of each one of these X-Men solo runs, and leave a comment in each one of those to let me know what you thought. Because each one of these, the review, the amount of views is blowing out, because it's like you guys are just loving my thoughts on each one of these stories. It's a shame there's no Professor X, solo comic that I could have read. It's like, wow, that's weird. Out of all these X-Men titles, there's not one that's focused on Professor Xavier. Anyway, Angel, from what I remember, got captured by some ghostly chick who has some kind of avian fear, or something with her, like a abusive ex that end up killing her, and like going deaf. I can't recall like everything of each one of these things, but I remember enjoying it decent enough, but it didn't really wow me like that. But I thought it was still like a very solid one, and it's like the only good solo Angel story that I got so far. Everything else that I've seen, I try to look up that he's involved, it's just like it's all team up stuff with like Psylocke, who he usually has some kind of romantic interest with, but is the only solo one technically. So I'm gonna put this one as a B. Is this like an above, or I was saying like above average? Is definitely like an average story, but still decent enough. Whereas like, you know, it's hard to say if I like the pencil art, but it's just the whole black and white thing. Sometimes so much going on, things tend to clash into one another, and I just can't get like a beat on certain things going on. Beast. Not only was only 3 issues, it just it wasn't satisfying. It was like, God, that is just. I remember it being just bad. I could not get into it. And you expect something with Hank McCoy. You expect, you know, something on the same level as what you saw from the X-Men TV show, like an adventure just starring him. I mean, at the very least, they utilized his skill set, his intellect, a bit, but yeah, it's just. I mean, it's like I appreciate like a tight knit story, but you still didn't do nothing with it, in my opinion. And him fighting against Spyro, but he's not the focus. It was like some other kid that whose name escaped me, but she has some kind of grudge against I forget the villain who was teaming up with Spyro because of an abuse that the person working with Beast's uncle did to them. So it was a whole thing. That part was interesting, but it just didn't feel like a Beast center story. He was like a ride along. Not fun. Bishop, man, this is like it felt like you was right smack dab in like an X-Men 90s TV show with starring Bishop in the present day of the 90s as a member of the X-Men, dealing with like a futuristic villain that is like pretty much like a homicidal maniac. Very dope. I remember it being very dope. And he's just kind of siphoning off other X-Men members' powers, and while Bishop's still getting over his like trauma of what happened to his friends in the future, all that stuff was pretty rock solid. I recall wanting to put this on the A ranking when I got the chance. Cable. I made a point with a lot of comics, more recently Scarlet Witch. I cannot stand inconsistent art. And I understand if you got like a long, run where it's like 15, like 10 or 15 or 20 some odd issues, but it's just like you get somebody involved, they need to stick to it. And sure, like, sometimes need a break and everything like that, but it's just like, yes, that's the comic book industry in a nutshell, where it's like you got like a month's time in between each issue to get one ready to be released in the following month. But I don't know. It's like I prefer one artist, so I don't get whiplash every time I see one good art, one bad art, one mediocre art, one above average art, and flop, 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 flop. Each one. It's like but outside of that, pretty solid story. Very Terminator like. Protecting this little Sarah Connor. That Hope will turn into. Despite the art, I will put it at like an A ranking too. It was pretty good. Colossus is, the Bloodlines. That was actually a pretty good story for Peter Rasputin, dealing with like Mr. Sinister and machinations of his evil ancestor that that Rasputin, that actual Rasputin guy who's trying to come back to the land of the living to wreak havoc. That was pretty dope. Thor was okay. I don't remember having any problem with it. I personally would like definitely put like Colossus at A rank, and that was actually surprisingly good. I had low expectations with Colossus. Like, he's just gonna be like a beat 'em up kind of thing, but no, like Colossus is like a tragic character. He's always seemed like the big lovable teddy bear that's got super strength and metal body, but you know he just he more often than not is dealing with something that you know you don't necessarily see or he doesn't necessarily share. Cyclops, I made a point to bring up, and check out my Cyclops solo. It's the first one I did when it comes to these solo story reviews. It shows him actually, you get inside his head on how effective a leader he is and what he's dealing with, and like that it's like that saying, like heavy is the crown, heavy is the head that wears the crown kind of situation, where he's dealing with a lot. And people complain about, oh, like he's just like a stick in the mud, and it was like a rule follower, and it's like it's like no, he has to do what he has to do to be an effective leader. And and he doesn't get no thanks, rarely get thanks. And it's just like, man, people talk too much shit about Cyclops. This one is actually a pretty solid story. You go to my channel, you'll see like through my list of like comic reviews, you'll see the Cyclops story, solo story, and so you'll know which one to look up, because it has the name of the writer, so that way you can easily look up the story and check out it yourself. And most of these are short issues. It's like like with Beast being like the shortest one of the 3 issues, but the highest be around like maybe like 20 and some change, down to like usually bare minimum 4 issues. But this one I also would put it in an A ranking, because I also like the fact that he in the story he quotes these other leaders, and whether you like the leader or not, whether they're but it's just kind of like like he quotes, I think it was Nixon. No, it was Reagan. He quotes Reagan, even though he doesn't like Reagan, but he still was like a leader nonetheless. And he quotes, Dr. King, a couple other presidents. It's like just iconic leaders, and he kind of utilized that, and even quoting some Sun Tzu for the Art of War. Like he puts that in his kind of like mental space, and use them as like his guiding light on how to, like, okay, what would they do as an effective leader, and how they will try to get like a good outcome, not necessarily like the best outcome, but good enough where you can like walk away decently. Dazzler, that was like a 2-parter story, and one of which is pretty good, dealing with her sister. Dazzler is actually a pretty dope character. Really wish we get more stories with her, but since it's only the short stories that I could get from, not necessarily lacking, but still didn't have enough meat to it, but I enjoyed it enough. I'll give it like a B. Deadpool, the Circle Chase. I remember this title because I actually got like the first issue, but I never got the chance to read the entire story in its completion for so many years. And now that I have, and I still enjoyed it, it was a nice, good story. Uh, it just not necessarily didn't leave with any satisfaction, but it's just like, man, it's just like, you expect this kind of big chase with all these different mercenaries trying to find this will, and you get like, Juggernaut and Black Tom Cassidy and these other mercenaries, different kinds of mercenaries, kind of like rat race, all these different groups, and Deadpool try to come on top. They're trying to get to this secret weapon before anybody else. And everybody's trying to hunt down Deadpool because he might know about this will and where the location is. It's a whole thing, but you don't get none of that. Most people kind of get axed off unceremoniously. Whereas, and you get Juggernaut and Black Tom Cassidy, who you think will be like a proper threat to Deadpool. They going after issue 2, and it's like, man, that kind of lackluster. You're expecting like a bigger fight. But you get this other fight with this cyborg thing, and like I said, it wasn't bad, but I kind of expected more. So I'll give this one a B. I could have probably gone with other Deadpool stories, but when I saw this, man, it's like, man, it was my opportunity to like, okay, I want to sit down and actually complete this story, so I can, finally get some closure on that. This is more so closure than anything else. Domino is really fun. It's a very fun story, and see her luck-based power is really in action. Her and having her friends, she had this little trio of a team going this little mercenary work, dealing with all these obstacles and this and situation with her past. This entire thing was really good from start to finish. Love the art, consistent art. It's kind of like, it kind of feels like Harley Quinn, but without the campy, jokey, fourth wall breakiness. But it's like, if you watch the Harley Quinn show, it kind of feels like that, but without the excessive corny jokes. Because now, these day and age, Harley Quinn is treated like Deadpool, only unless certain moments in comics, she's not breaking the fourth wall. But I put Domino at S rank. I really enjoy Domino. Emma Frost. As I stated in my review of Emma Frost's solo story, each cover, and like, unlike most of the other comics that solo comics that I was going through, each cover issue of Emma Frost feels like one of those romantic, romance novel books. And it's like the art was very well done at each cover, and it's like, man, it's like you could easily make like a romance book, and it kind of feels like a romantic book in certain parts. Like, it's like if you go through the story, you see like the horrible family that she comes from, and the twistedness of the mindset of each member of her family. Is just like, the Kardashians ain't got shit on Emma Frost's family. Oh my freaking god, you should read this, because it's like, you just want to give Emma Frost a hug. It's like, oh my god, this is terrible. It's no wonder she ends up in the Hellfire Club at a certain point in her life, and she works that line of hero and anti-hero kind of situation. But she is a very dope character. You can see that, like, the tragicness of her background, and like how she kind of like adopts this, not cold, but for a short period, cold persona. But if you see her family, and then how she is, throughout like the 90s and 2000s, it's like, wow, Emma Frost has probably turned out like the best out of all of her family members. The fact that she could have easily been like a full-blown villain, but it was her sister who turns out to be like a villain, because each one of her family, at least each one of her siblings, has some degree of psychic powers, but she's the only one that actually got like a added bonus of diamond skin. But this one's really solid. I really love Emma Frost's story. S rank. I'm not even gonna beat around, but Gambit was definitely S rank. That was my first S rank. I knew immediately, and that one blew up the biggest out of all the Soul X-Men stories that I did for the channel. Gambit blew up the most, and I understand why. His first mini story series, it was really good, man. It's my favorite art out of all the art that I've seen from each one of these stories. He's still by far my favorite one. There's other ones that had good art too, and I'll mention them, but he is his comic was my absolute favorite illustration. Consistent and 4 issues, so it's nice, truncated, stuck to the point. Everything was done exceptionally well. Hope Summers, it's just like a one issue thing, like ties into Cable's story and how he was raising her from his point of view, and this is from her point of view, but more truncated in between the times that we see from Cable what's going on with him and how he's dealing with protecting her. You see from moments in her point of view of stuff we didn't see from his story, and how she learned to be like this badass super soldier. And it was short, but I still dug it, so you get these little points from her perspective, like her training to fight off a stealthy attacker, and seeing Cable as like a father figure, and one like wanted his approval, but she learns to like he gives his approval, but he's so stoked you gotta like catch it in the right moment. It's really, really good. You see it like her little training stages in her life. But I give it a C. It's fairly average regardless. I'm not a fan of this particular art. I don't know what it is about this art. Every time I see it, I do not care for it. Jean Grey. Now, I want to make a point of this because as I was going through trying to pull up like the images of the comics of each of these solo stories that I went through, if you go through my Jean Grey, I made a mistake on a thumbnail that don't have anymore, and I don't feel like redoing it. Honestly, I mentioned the art, the writer is like his last name Hopeless, and I have it Hopless, and that was like a mistake. I forgot the E, and just now realizing that after many months that went by, so my apologies on that. But the story is pretty good, and it's like you're learning like this is the period when like the past X-Men teens from the original, like the original roster of X-Men that were teens move into the present day of 2016-ish and meeting their present selves or future selves and realize how messed up they are. And Jean Grey sees like, oh, I'm destined to turn this Phoenix Firebird and cause all this other destruction and possible deaths of friends and family. And it's like and she's trying to run away from all that, and she's learning to learn from other people who on how to manage it in different ways, so that way once the thing come calling, she's properly prepared this time. I thought that was pretty dope. Like learn from like Psylocke about like manifesting psychic weapons, and learning from Hope, like military tactics, because you learn from different people who had the Phoenix Force at a certain point and how they dealt with it. And she learns that even somebody like Namor, who had the Phoenix Force for a brief time, they're still traumatized, is deep in the recesses of their minds, but they still have not gotten over it, because that's how deep the Phoenix will mess you up mentally. But that's why you learn why she was worthy, quote unquote, worthy of the Phoenix Force. She's like the one that better managed it out of all of them, despite the whole Dark Phoenix thing. You see why she was the worthy, inheritor of the Phoenix Force, because she properly managed it, not totally unscathed, but handling it better than most of them. But it was really good. I put it on an A ranking. It was really good. Jubilee. I like this one. The art style was okay. It's definitely better than the art style like you see from comics like displaying this art. But it's just kind of like a slice of life, not Breakfast Club, but those teen movie type of genres, with Jubilee going back to California, and visiting an aunt who turns out to be a hit woman, and staying with her while she's like helping out certain students at the school she's at. And you can see that Jubilee passing on some bit of knowledge as like not a substitute, but like a assistant guidance counselor. And even though she's not into it, she just all the stuff that she learned from Professor X kind of rubbed off on her, and she kind of like, without realizing it, helping these kids a great deal with their problems from what she learned from being an X-Men, and what she learned from her betters when she was piling around with the X-Men. A good kind of like slice of life with Jubilee that was really fun. I put it at like a high B. Not enough to be an A, but I put it like a high B because it was really fun. Shadowcat. Man. Oh my god, I forgot about like Iceman. The Iceman story. God dog it. I'll put in after the video. There was like an Iceman story, which I'll probably have to put on a B level. It was really cool, no pun intended. But it was like, I don't know, this whole weird thing with like an ex of his. She talking about, oh, she has like a kid that his, but he lied to him just to get him to come help dealing with some situation in it was either China or Japan. I think it was China. Either way, turns out to be a lie, but it's like, could just asked him. You knew him, so you think it was ask him to help out with your kid that even though it's not his. You don't think an X-Man would help a friend in need? The whole thing is weird. But seeing like Iceman utilize his powers, and he actually can strategize. I don't want to say strategize per se, but he's not an idiot. He has some wherewithal to come up with like a decent amount of strategy to deal with a foe. So I will put it at like a B ranking after this video. Shadowcat, I'll also put it as like a B. I'll also put it as a B. It's fun to see her, like, because there's a moment where it's not just her using phasing powers. She actually has learned stealth and martial arts from and the people like the likes of Wolverine, and she becomes lethal in her own right. And then she's trying to find like the mate for her dragon partner Lockheed. It was fun and nice to see, like, Shadowcat dealing with some issues with her past, and seeing her, this is not like that little, you know teen angst kid that she was previously. She's, not necessarily adult, but she's, definitely matured and like become like a lethal fighter in her own right. It was really good. Magic, like with Hope, there was only like a couple of mini stories just to see like how she ends up with, in limbo and getting the magic powers and stuff like that. It's fine, but nothing to write home about. But it's still better than Beast, but I'll put like a D ranking. Magneto, definitely S rank. The story with him growing up in the Holocaust, and the writers actually, getting knowledge from historians who lived through that situation, tried to make sure it's, a fair amount of info you can learn from, like the amount of people that were eradicated in those camps, and how Magneto met up with Magna, his wife, and his subtle magnetic powers emerging. All that stuff was very well handled. The cover arts were was definitely amazing as well. Yeah, so it's like read like a biopic of Magneto. It's very good. Definitely S rank. Nightcrawler, that one was, it's definitely in like the horror realm. Very fun, cool use of like, a Nightcrawler's powers. Because you get something like Nightcrawler, not necessarily feels like, oh wow, this kind of like, kind of cliche to get the demon looking guy to deal with some kind of supernatural stuff. I get it, but it's still like a good read. And it's like, you just drop, it's like you drop Nightcrawler in the Conjuring movies or something. So I would put that in A rank. It was very well done. Actually no, well, it's either A or S, because I don't know, it was enjoyable. It's really enjoyable. God, I don't know, actually, because it could go either way, because I did enjoy this. Yes, you get to see like one of the night nurses, I think Christine Palmer, that he ends up flirting with. I'll leave it at A. Psylocke, I won't put it at S rank, man, because that was really fun. And it's like, just Psylocke, just, man, not only she's like a badass character in her own right, but the fact that, it's not necessarily, there is a bad, but it's a big bad, but it's not like something that she has to like use her powers to overpower and deal with. No, this is like a mercy killing, if anything else. The only real combat she has to do was against Wolverine, who, haven't gotten over his love Mystico, who died by the hands of the guy that Psylocke in the past used to hook up with. And Wolverine just like every year upon the anniversary of his wife's death, he goes and get a pound of flesh off this dude. He, he keeps, makes sure he stays alive each year, like, you know, through the rest of the year, to make sure that every time he comes back, he takes another chunk of his flesh. And Psylocke guys like confront him like, dude, either kill him, get it over with, or leave it alone. At this point, it's just like Psylocke learning, you know, the difference between like just like, you know, about like just you know, like, not everybody deserves death, but when it comes to it, you know, it's like, don't let it rule over you. Don't let it take, you know, like become a part of you, because it just make you sick inside. In a way, that's like the lesson. That's how I glean from it. It's like, you know, learn to let it go. One way, either way, whatever decision you make, you gotta learn to let it go. Quicksilver, that one, I gotta give it a D, because I don't know, I didn't get a lot from it. You know, you'll learn something with like him and his relationship with Crystal and the Inhumans, the whole thing with like the High Evolutionary and Madripoor and like the Acolytes. All that seems like a for lack of a better word, jumble mess. Whereas it's like it feels like it, because, you know, it's like, you know, late 90s, early 2000s or something. I think it was like late 90s, where it's like, yeah, there's certain tie-ins and certain points, and it feels like you're skipping like a chunk of a story before we get into another arc. It doesn't feel consistent, and it feels like a jumbled mess in a way, because you got like too many plates spinning in a way that I can't just wrap my head around, honestly. Like, I get the story, but it's just like, it's too much. You gotta like, they gotta have some focus. Apocalypse, Origins of Apocalypse, that one's really good. You have to learn a little bit more about Ensemble Noir and his upbringing. I'll put it at A-rank for Apocalypse. That was really dope. Rogue, a nice little tie-in to Gambit story. Immediate is like an immediate S rank, and her coming to resolve her own personal issues with her ex-boyfriend Cody, who she accidentally put into a coma when her powers first manifested, and have to, you know, gain forgiveness from said boyfriend before he finally passed on. It gave her some closure. All that was a nice little story with Rogue, her first miniseries. That was really good. Sabretooth was definitely fun. I dug the art. The story with, you learn about Grant and Creed, the offspring of Mystique and Sabretooth. I wish they did some more to it, but the ending kind of seems like anticlimactic. And I get it. It's like, you know, Sabretooth, like, not shown mercy towards his son for what he put him through, but it's just like, I don't know, kind of feel like you should have done I don't know, from somebody like Sabretooth, you at least rough him up, or it feels like do something, leave a scar or something like that. I don't know. It just toss him on the side, like, you know, whatever. Like, you know, I can hurt you in all other kind of ways, kind of thing. I don't know, it's very anticlimactic. But besides how the ending is, everything else seems fairly rock solid. I'm putting an A rank. That was really, really good. Scarlet Witch. Once again, not consistent art. Fair amount of good art, but I like the pencil art from the first and the last issue. That I kind of wish was like that all the way through. But fairly good story. A couple of issues could have been taken out and it would have been a whole lot shorter, because I don't think it fed in an overall narrative. I like the whole idea of her arch enemy, Emerald Warlock, but I kind of wish she was like a bigger of a big bad. But her reconciling her past with finding out who her true mom was, her working with Agatha in order to take down this chaos entity that's ruining witchcraft, all that's really good. And I will put the A rank. It was really done. Well done. Storm was crap. And I hate to say that because I like Storm, but man, it was just not good. She just trapped on a different dimension with the brother, or not brother, cousin of Colossus. And it's just, you know, I don't know. It doesn't feel like she was doing much with her powers. And, you know, it's just, I don't know. You flip flop between her and Cable and him learning why, you know, she was such an important part of the team, and, you know, what she meant to people, which on the surface, or at least on paper, sounds good. But as far as executions, I find it boring. And Wolverine's first meeting says, instant S rank. Very well done, and nice little tie into what, you know, later on with a solo Psylocke story. Wolverine going to Japan, which the Wolverine movie based off this particular story. And man, it's just like a nice little, you know, this story was a nice callback to this story. So very well done. I love it. Wolverine Japan is always fun. Then you got X-23. I will definitely put that S rank because it's the level of violence, very, like, you know, just watching X-23 just be like the Terminator, and just like, you know, when she needs to, when you, it's like watching young John Connor telling like the Terminators, you know, raise your hand and promise I won't kill anyone. I promise I won't kill anyone. Shoot him in the leg, he'll live. That's exactly how you will see like X-23 when you read this, where she's just like, you know, don't get social awareness. But man, that, so yeah, S rank tiers: Domino, Emma Frost, Gambit, Magneto, Psylocke, Rogue, Wolverine, X-23. A rank: Bishop, Cable, Colossus, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Nightcrawler, Apocalypse, Sabretooth, Scarlet Witch. B rank: Jubilee, Angel, Dazzler, Deadpool, Shadowcat, Iceman. We'll put that in post, so next time I come back to the tier list ranking, when I, you know, complete all the team up books and come back to this, because I'm not doing every book, but at least the important ones that is notable. And then I'll come back to this and you'll see Iceman on the list. C rank: Hope Summers. D rank: Magic, Quicksilver. F rank: Beast and Storm. And that is the X-Men comic tier list maker for now. But this will just be a part one. So like part two will be like the team up books. But let me know in the comments below if you read, or at least watched my videos of my reviews of each of these solo stories, or if you have read the stories that I brought up, what you thought, how would you rank them in your opinion. And yeah, I might pop in a little bit later tonight for some Overwatch 2, but beyond that, I'll just call it a night. I'll be back tomorrow for more multiplayer games. But anyway, I will see you guys later. Take care, have a great weekend if I don't see you, and yeah, take care.